All right, good evening, everybody. Let's start off by saying the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're going to do an overview. Jennifer?
All right. Well, first I want to apologize for missing the second half of hearings. I was out of commission until Friday, came back to work, so. Thank you. We start this process in April and work all summer, and so you just don't plan on being sick. But anyway, glad to be back. So I have a bit of an overview and also some suggestions, kind of a conversation that I might have presented in the afternoon on Tuesday but didn't get to. So I'll go through this. The maximum levy growth was 4%, which was the same as 24 and 25. AVs are up anywhere from 2 to 5%. Circuit breaker estimates are doubled, so 6% of levies, up from 3% this year. Income tax, the regular distribution is up 6 to 7%. We don't know the supplemental distribution until May of next year, but I did figure in 90% of this year. General fund revenue was only $270,000 more than the approved for 25, and the general fund budget was $4.3 million over the approved 2025. So you adjusted the spend rate to 96%, making that assumption. Salaries were still in at the 1% on the grids, plus a $750 one-time amount for full-time, $500 for regular part-time. And then positions that there were many that were held steady or unfunded, and I noted CASA, Health Department, Community Corrections, and Probation. I'm not sure if I missed any there, but those were the ones that I heard. I spent the morning listening to the second half of hearings to get caught up. Oops. So the general fund budget revenues at $67,279,445. Budget just over $73 million at the 96% rate. It comes in at 70.2, and there's your magic number of cash balance to use of $3,939,000.
So
Oh,
go ahead. Well, I thought when we looked at it that we were $5 million less in our revenue projection than this year.
Initially, yes.
Okay.
That was before you started making all of your adjustments. And I
Okay.
think Ben pointed out what the three items were. It was like carry home revenue, excise, and interest.
Right.
So that was where you started.
Okay.
And then we made adjustments.
So then our revenue, okay, let's see what you're going to show us.
Okay.
Thanks.
So this is a chart I did last year just showing the different categories of revenue. And as you can see, we rely heavily on the general fund for property and income taxes. What's scary about that is that, property taxes are expected to freeze in the next 3 years or so. And then they would like you to increase your income taxes, but we know that that isn't always the most stable of revenues. But obviously, we have a heavy reliance on that category of revenue. So for like intergovernmental, we're down for what we expect for 26. Licenses and permits are pretty stable, but again, a very small portion of that. Charges for services are up slightly. And then other receipts, interest is the big one here where we're estimating a decrease. So just kind of want to point that out, that as that property tax does freeze, these are going to become more important. So for cash flow, this is how you ended the day, and using the $3 million. So I'm expecting the balance to be around 17.3 at the end of this year. And then using an additional $3 million would put us at 14 million next year. It'd give you 3 to work with throughout the year. Oops. Here's the list of the other budgets. For the most part, there were cuts to every fund except Lit Public Safety. We transferred some things there. And the 911 was just a minor adjustment to health insurance. So overall, the total cuts were $92,626 by the time we added and subtracted some things. I filled in the blanks for some of the part-time rates that were in your packet that didn't have anything. Like, for example, I confirmed with the sheriff today that for special projects, merit deputy is $60 per hour. I did not hear from the surveyor whether that 45 for the project manager for part-time was needed, but went ahead and added that. And then you had talked about the Tippecanoe members for 300 a day. So just wanted to point those out. You looked at the other units budgets, solid waste, Little Weaw, and the CVB. So one of the things I also did today was I spent some time going through the line items again just to see if I could see anything else. And I wanted to throw these out, whether you like them or not is totally fine. You might end up staying with what you did, and that's fine. Public defender reimbursement, that seemed to be short. The estimate that I have is 1.3 million, so there's an increase there on the revenue side. For lit, I had rounded these numbers, and so I just went ahead and threw in the actual what I think it's going to be. That was an increase of 31,000 there. And then I don't know if anyone talked to Chris Gertz or not. We couldn't reach her today. Whether or not the rural conservationist, she'd gotten a grant and was reimbursing us for that. I don't know if anyone knows if we'll get any of that money, but I was kind of hoping so. So I added 45,000 there. So the total adds to revenue are about 258,000. Whoops. For the budget side, I have a regular part-time position that I could fill later in the year, so I dropped that 20,000. I'm suggesting doing the Tippecanoe split instead of 90-10, doing 80-20 and shifting 10% more over to reassessment fund. I'm also suggesting that the Lit Public Safety Fund could pick up an extra 100,000 in sheriff retirement. And then I was somewhat conservative on health insurance. There is generally some turnover there, and so I felt like we could take another 100,000 out of that. And by that I mean the health insurance line item within the general fund. I think it got conveyed at hearings that I was talking about cutting the self-insurance fund itself, and I was talking about general fund, just because of turnover. So came up with some additional cuts of 223,000.
And did you see the email from Julie about her
Cuts because she has some new employees, so the salaries went down slightly from the clerk's office.
Okay, I did not make that change, but yes, I remember seeing that now.
Okay.
It's probably going to be somewhere in the $2,000 to $3,000. Yeah, I'll make that change. So overall, that would make your gap 2.5 million instead of the 3. Don't get too excited about that because I have more proposals. So with those changes and also looking at the second half expenditures for the general fund, that would leave you with an available amount of 4 million there. For lit public safety, I had rounded the lit number. If I put in the more accurate number, that brought it up 72,000. So adding the 100,000 of sheriff retirement is net 13. So I thought that number seemed reasonable for lit public safety. However, 2026 is what I'm calling the perfect storm of all of these things, with SB1, with the increasing health insurance claims and the premiums. And one of the things Greg talked about, which I hadn't really thought much about, was the 27 pay issue for 2026. And typically, when I deal with that, I divide by 27. So I wanted to give you a pay scenario of what that looks like. If we look at a Comet 5 position, and we increase the salary from 25 to 26 at 1%, and we give a 750 one-time stipend, for lack of a better word, the salary would be $59,087. At 26 pays, that's $22.72 per pay. If we divide by 27, you're lowering their per pay to $21.88, which is a difference of $84.17. If you add the family plan and the change to those rates, that's an additional 83. So right off the bat, they're having 24 pays of $167.18 less than what they're seeing this year. They would have an extra pay with no deductions. So when we have 26 pays, we do 24 with deductions for health insurance and other benefits. But when we have 2 that are so that pay goes up. Their net pay goes up. When we have 27 pays, we would have 3 additional pays with no deductions, and so the pay would be increased. Essentially, the salary for a Comet 5 is $59,087, regardless whether you pay it in 26 or 27 pays. That's just how I've always dealt with it. You divide by the number of pay periods.
And there's 27 this year just for like how the math works on the calendar or what?
Well, yes, and so when we originally looked at it, we just drew a line at January 27 and counted them up in 26, and it was 26 pays. However, when we looked at the January pay date, it was 1/1, and our policy states that we will pay on the day before. So that pushed it to a 12/31 payday, which is early, and so we talked about pushing it to 1/4 and starting the 27 rates earlier. We talked to the payroll vendor who said, oh, you can pay on holidays, not a big deal. So we were going to just pay 1/1. And then they came back and said, no, that's the only holiday you can't pay. So we tried, since Greg brought it up, we looked at it a little closer and we tried all of these other things. And like I said, it's just it adds to the whole pay scenario and with the health insurance rates. So what I wanted to suggest, and like I said, you can do any or none of these things, but if you look at the cost of 1% was $613,000. If you were to double the stipend amount, again, that keeps the grid from increasing and compounding year after year. But if you were to double that amount, essentially the cost is another $565,000. And that's in total. To the general fund, it's about $423,900. So in conjunction with those other changes that I suggested, you would still be under $3 million of a gap, basically, but be able to offer a little bit more pay. So again, not something I would spring on at this meeting, but due to missing the other one, I wasn't able to present it. So that was where I ended there, and then open for your discussion.
What's our typical pay increase year over year? Like what percentage?
It has been 2-3% generally.
Okay.
5% for 25.
Okay.
And that was high in comparison to past years.
Mm-hmm.
But we've had years I remember in 2010, 2011, nothing back when we had the recession. We've had years where we haven't been able to do anything.
Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, the stipend as we had approved it gets it pretty close to effectively a 2% bump, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Jennifer, kind of stepping back a second,
Yep.
Can you help me understand what's going on that we're needing to dip into the general fund? Is our expenses increasing? I'm assuming it's our expenses are increasing faster than our general revenue is?
Yes.
Okay, so I think we need to maybe not right now tonight, but I think we need to understand that a little, or I need to understand a little bit better where that's all coming from. And
Well, you added the election,
Yep.
expenses. You added enough to accommodate the juvenile detention, secure detention for the courts.
Yep.
Think you added more jury expense and just general costs for the courts so that they don't have to come back. Trying to think of where else I saw big increases. Sheriff overtime has grown from 350,000 to 800 over the past couple of years. Yeah, just those.
Okay. Given everything that's going on in the economy, I support doing the one-time stipend increase. So I was hoping we could do that, find a way to do that.
Well, I heard the comments at the hearings and.
Yep.
I would second that and continue. You know, how you refigured it, Jennifer, looks good.
And I would agree. At the end of the day, it's still, it's being able to find a way to keep the same amount, 3 million, a little over 3 million, but also giving more of a benefit to the employees, which we wanted to do anyways. Yeah, I'm absolutely in favor of it.
And I agree. I'm glad that we can take care of our employees, especially seeing the increase in health insurance costs. But I also agree with Lisa's comments when we look at expenses continuing to rise and the perfect storm that we have on the other hand, that we really are, I think, next year going to really have to look as we begin budgeting and looking at our departments very closely. And I think, Ben, you made the suggestion, starting to talk with our in our departments now for next year.
Yeah, I agree, and I think 27 could be worse, could be harder than this, and we need to prepare and know what our priorities are looking at the new lit proposals.
Since everybody made a comment, I feel that I ought to say something. I'm glad we were able to, give something, 1% plus a 700 or 750 stipend. But it is a good place to work, county government. It's outstanding, and I worked at Eli Lilly 28 years, and there was a period of 12 years we didn't get a raise. We just were blessed with our insurances and all the other plans, but the county is a good place to work. I mean, you get a lot of holidays and stuff like that, so I suppose that 1% plus the stipend, if you just ballpark 40, 50,000, everybody gets about $100 on a month or something. Anybody ever put a pencil to it? I never did. You get the 1% of your gross, then you get a $750 stipend. So I say people getting about extra.
It depends on
It depends on their base, right? But still, I remember there was a day I wish I had $80 a month extra. So, and COLA, it's no longer. So, cost of living allowance. That's my spiel.
Is there anything specific we need to do to accept these changes, or just?
So I'll just prepare the budget documents to reflect that. So you might not get them until really close to the meeting next week, but we'll work on that, and that'll be figured in.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. Thank you for all your work of going back through it and making some proposals that definitely made a difference. So thank you. Okay, at this time, any public comment? It looks like we have a lot of public out there, so what you got to say? Any comments? All right, any other business? All right, then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.